Hi, and welcome to this week's review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Episode 4 of Season 1, Memento Mori. And I'm joined here with the Nerdiest Prime crew, Alan O'Neill.
Hey.
And Namir Ahmed.
Hey.
And I'm Luckas Cardona-Morisset, and this week I'm at IHOP in Salt Lake City. So, Memento Mori, what do you guys think of this title?
Well, I don't know what it means. It sounds like it's some foreign language, possibly Latin. I have no idea. But I bet Alan knows.
Because I just Googled it. It is Latin for remember that you have to die.
Oh, dark. But I wonder what Google means in Latin.
Waste of time. What does everybody think of this episode? Let's start with Alan.
Oh, why is it always me?
I can start. You want me to start? I can start. I don't mind.
You never start.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I can start.
Let you start. I want to hear what other people think first.
I thought this episode was great. I love this episode. I think it's the best episode so far. I don't know what to say specifically in such a short amount of time, but I thought it was a great situation, like great drama, great action, and I had like great time watching.
I really love this episode. I was like, I was really pleasantly surprised by it, and it's kind of what I was hoping for. And you know, the first 3 episodes I wasn't a fan of, but this episode was like, it's like they made it just for me.
So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I agree with you guys. Say this is probably the strongest episode of the 4 we've seen so far. I really enjoyed the first few, but I like the fact that this one, again, it had a really gripping storyline, and I liked all the performances from all the cast. Everybody had something to do. I liked, say, compared to last week where I enjoyed that, but it was a little unfocused with seeds of other stories happening and a lot going on. This one here was a focused story, and everything contributed to the main plot, and I think it was a really well put together episode, and I had a lot of fun watching this one.
So one of the things that I was kind of complaining about from the first 3 episodes was that it never really felt like they were actually on a real military kind of ship. It just kind of, I don't know what it felt like. It just felt like a bunch of friends kind of cruising the galaxy like Scooby-Doo or something. But this actually felt like there was some protocols. There was like some military kind of best practices that they had to follow, right?
What I really liked about it was like what you mentioned, Namir, like there's a real military battle element to it. I was reminded of Star Trek 2 when the Enterprise and the Reliant are fighting the Mutara Nebula, and it's like 2 submarines. And also thinking about the episode Balance of Terror from the first season of the series, where the Talons and the Romulans, and that was kind of based on submarine warfare. There was definitely this kind of submarine warfare element going on.
I appreciated that too. I like captain to captain, ship to ship, like a one-on-one battle, and where tactics are involved, and it feels like there's actual thought put into it. Like a lot of the Star Trek battles and Star Wars battles, they tend to be, people come in, they go choo 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 choo, and they say evasive action and shields up, and it's usually the same stuff. And I say when they actually put a little effort into like a space battle, it just takes it to a whole nother level. Like, and you really feel like this is a crew operating together in a crisis. They feel like real people.
For me, this is the best episode of New Trek, hands down. Of everything that I've seen from New Trek, this is the best episode. It's better than the second episode of Picard's second season, which is really the only good episode. But this blows it out of the water. I really liked everything about it.
I really love Pike in this episode, and on too, who I thought at first I wasn't going to really like her character, but I do. And it was nice to see that, again, they're very capable of doing like just a nice character arc rating, because it went from her being closed off and blunt, and and I love that moment, where it says sometimes the people around you need to feel like there's a miracle happening or something like that, and then at the end, she helps bring the crew together in the moment that they need to come together, and she created her own little miracle at the end to save their asses. So I like that there was a whole complete arc in this episode for her, and she's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters on the show.
The positiveness of Captain Pike, I think, he's in a very negative, place. And, like the things are not going well. Things are during the whole episode, everything's kind of stacked up against him, and he stays positive, and they try to work the problem. And he has faith in his crew. He has faith in, he believes in his ship, and he puts that all at work.
And at the same time, he makes everybody wish that he was their dad.
It's like, this is a guy I would like to work for. He's a great boss, and and I can't say I've ever felt that way about any other Starfleet captain in any of these shows. Whereas like Cisco would be a hard ass, and Picard would be kind of stuffy and distant, and Kirk would be kind of
self-absorbed.
Yeah, trying to get my sister. But but Pike always seems like it's like, oh, he makes everybody feel so good, and he always wants to do all these, socialize with them, make them feel at home and comfortable, to get the best performance out of them.
I like how he gives people like some leeway. Like Lahan is like, she kind of takes a lot of room, and she kind of is like negative, and he kind of lets her do her thing, but then also he's good at reining her in. You have a job to do, and part of your job is to be positive, so that the people will believe. And the thing he said, the people will believe in a miracle, and then they deliver a miracle. In other words, the power of positive thinking. He doesn't. He's still a leader in that he follows his beliefs. He has the power of his conviction.
So here's a question that I kind of get the impression that the Gorn aren't really explored in the Star Trek universe that much. Like they're not really a species in any other series, right?
Of course, there's Arena, which is technically the first contact with the Gorn, with Kirk meeting him on that planet and fighting him. And then, of course, there's been a few visual gags on Lower Decks with the Gorn. And, I think they were in the original animated series. But, there's really been no exploration of the culture. And I think that's what they're kind of dancing with the canon enforcers. Because technically, the Gorn were not really that well known. Or I don't even know if they were known at the point of Arena, or if they even specifically say, but I don't think they knew what they looked like.
Yeah, I think it's great. The way that they handled the Gorn in this episode, you don't see them, which I thought was such a smart move. Because they're menacing, but you still, it's that Jaws effect, right? The things that you don't see are much more menacing than the things that you do see. So because they did that, I can't wait to see them, right? I really, even if we know basically what they're going to look like, right? There's this real element of mystery and menace.
So that's the thing, if they ever portray them in this show, it has to be like non-Starfleet people that see them, I suppose. Or, because I guess, again, if you think of it as a reboot, however you guys are thinking of it, I guess it wouldn't matter. But if you're watching it as an entry into the Prime universe canon, technically they probably shouldn't see the Gorn or know too much about them.
I'm just so happy that they handled the Gorn the way that they did, and they actually did spaceships as submarines.
I've been rewatching a Space Above and Beyond, and it's kind of weird that the Gorn ships in this look exactly like the Chig fighters. I don't know if anybody watched that show back in the 90s, but they look exactly like the Chig fighters. They even operate kind of the same way. I thought I was like, was somebody watching that show when they designed these ships?
Oh, why did you say that? You just ruined it for me. No, I'm just kidding. It's totally fine.
No, yeah, it's fine. I mean, but yeah, I just as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's like the chicks from Space Above and Beyond. It's right where I mean, the CGI was really bad in the 90s, but this is a much better look. But
And especially as the visual effects get better, and you can show things that you weren't able to show before, then it opens it up to show more things as opposed to doing things you've done before. And then the first 3 episodes, although they were good episodes, they were in a lot of ways kind of rehashing things that we had seen before. But this was like feature level storytelling and visual effects and scale of this battle. That whole travel around the black hole and the way the black hole was depicted, it was amazing. It was like, oh, I've never seen this. It was the kind of scenes or sequences that I would expect to see in a feature film. And that's why I generally like the feature films more than the show, because with the feature films, they had a bigger budget and they could do things, and you could see things that you can see in the show. The show was better for developing characters, and the movies were better for really getting to see stuff that you don't get to see in the show.
Yeah, if I could nitpick one thing, it's I have a pet peeve about characters remembering things, and then the thing that they remember just appears in the scene. Like La'an remembering her brother, and they visualize that by showing him sort of in the background. I think there's a scene where he's behind Pike, and there's a lot of like smash cuts to his face, and you don't know what that is or why we're looking at him, and it's really disorienting. I don't really like it when they do that, because it doesn't add anything. It just throws the viewer off, right? Where you could have just very easily, like after they mind meld, have a scene there where she's just like, oh yeah, this is my brother. You want to see La'an, right? You want to see her feelings about her brother. I don't really care about what her brother looks like. Like all of that stuff should be in the acting, and I think it takes away from the episode when you do that. So I wish they hadn't done that. But again, it's like it's a minor thing in the context of the episode.
The one silly nitpick I had was when they go down to the colony, and there's that dog in that store window, and I'm like, why did they film this at it looks like a corner store where it's like a door and there's like a little key lock, and it looks like I'm going to the grocery store. It wasn't very futuristic. It seems like they just shot this in backstage or wherever they are. I was like, they couldn't just make a futuristic door there with a window or something. Why is it gotta be a storefront door from Shoppers Drug Mart, or and who would be using a key lock in the future? I'm like, you'd have well, it would just open probably. That's what Star Trek doors do.
I kind of just chalked that up to the fact that it was a settlement, right? I think that the settlements have always been a little bit lower tech. And I guess it's because maybe you can't trust technology on other planets. So the thing that bothered me was that I think they just left the dog there on the planet, locked in the.
Oh yes, I've seen some online chatter. I'm like, did they go back for the dog?
They definitely left that dog on the planet.
Man, I thought that was the end of our new Mr. Kyle, though.
Yeah, me too.
I thought for sure he was going to bite the dust, especially when they kind of foreshadowed it at the beginning. But because he's working, and Pike's talking about, the people who make the ultimate sacrifice, and then later on he's running for his life, and I'm like, he's gonna not make it. And then he made it, and his buddy, well, I think the guy who did get blown out into space was the guy he kind of smiled and nodded at that speech earlier in the episode.
They're definitely like doing the red shirt thing, where they have characters that they introduce and give a line in the beginning just so that they can die later on, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy that had that line, oh yeah, that's him, he's dead now.
And can we talk about that one guy too on the bridge? I totally thought that guy was gonna bite it, the no name. I'm like, oh man, a console's gonna explode at this guy at some point, and then he actually survives.
He was so excited.
Yeah, he was really excited at the end there when they destroyed that Gorn ship or whatever, and then they got the Galileo people back, and he's like, yeah,
yes.
But he's just happy a console didn't explode in his face. I think
so, because I think he was wearing a red shirt. So he was like, uh-oh.
Oh yeah, for sure. I thought he was totally gonna die.
But that's the other thing I like about this episode is that they're in the first the original series does this really well where they give minor characters stuff to do. Like they actually treat them like they're real characters as opposed to just extras. And I really like that because it adds to the sense of realism, and I think they're doing that again, and I think it's a really smart move.
It was nice too that Pike, actually cares, because that always bothered me in the original series. As much as I love Kirk, and he never really gave a shit about people who died. Well, we just watched the Galileo 7 there recently, and it's like a couple people die on that planet with the giant guys with the giant spears. And and then like 5 come back from the 7, and Kirk is like still joking with people on the bridge. I'm like, you just lost 2 crew members. And he's like, oh, I have a quick closing joke with Spock. And
I'm sure Kirk bottles it up deep inside, and then later on in his bedroom screams out all their names.
You better start planning that memorial service and those letters to the families. Stop joking around. But
I'm sure he's got a form letter that he just. There's like a blank spot for their name. Just puts it in there. Dear sir or madam.
Kirk just collateral damage for the mission or whatever. But, Pike actually like takes a moment to actually acknowledge it and is bothered by it. And, I appreciate that.
The other thing that I like, and I don't think I've ever really seen it done this way, is the Zoom calls. Like they had like a conference call on screen, when they're in the ready room, and then you have Hammer and then Mbenga on the same screen, and it's a simple thing, but I don't remember seeing that in Star Trek before, but it makes complete sense.
Well, they did in the original series. They would have a little screen on the conference table, and then they would check in with people on the bridge.
The little tri-screen.
But yeah, it was like 3-way screen. But you're right, that was on the original series, and it wasn't really done that much after that.
It really adds to it because you don't have to get them to come up, or it feels immediate, right? Like there's a tense situation happening, they have to tell you immediately what's happening, what's going on, where they are. So they flip a screen on, they just give the report, and then that's it. Then they got to go back to whatever it was they're doing. So
the Doctor on Voyager always had to zoom in for a while till they got his mobile emitter. He was always on the screen because he couldn't join them in the conference room.
Okay. Are you guys going to keep poking holes in the thing that I like?
It's what we do.
You ruin things for me? Is that...
Yes. And I really liked the resolution for this. That kind of... The Gorn had their own version of like Enigma with the light communication. And I guess her brother did all the heavy lifting deciphering it, and then she used that against them. And they blew themselves up. I actually thought that was pretty good tactic.
That sequence was kind of when, for me, the momentum stopped a little bit. Like it felt like the pacing was off, because they went off the ship and they had to do the mind melt thing, and then everything kind of slowed down. And I think it just seemed a little too easy. Like all the information was in that book, but it's not like they had an actual book. It was just from her memories. So she had to memorize all of that and then bring it out. And then, because it was just letters. So then she had to use that to deliver this complicated message. That part didn't really ring true to me.
Well, I think, at the same time, I mean, they're at the constraints now of an episodic 45, 50-minute show. So, they can't take 10 episodes to figure this out like Discovery would have to do.
They've got a computer, right? They have AI on their their shuttle or their ship. So they could have done something like that, but they had to make this weird connection with the book.
It was La'an's miracle that Pike said sometimes out of these things miracles happen, and then that was her miracle. She saved the ship.
No, the miracle is that they survived.
Are you guys ready to do ratings now?
Okay.
Okay, let's start with Namir's rating.
Okay, so I'm gonna give it a 7, and I was really considering giving it an 8, but I want to give it a 7 just in case there's more, there's better episodes coming up. So I'm gonna give it a really, really like a 7.9. I'm gonna give it a 7.9.
Okay, Alan.
I'm gonna give this one a 9. I think, because I was like, I feel like they were firing on all cylinders here, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I mean, again, I think it's going to be hard to top this one for the last 6 episodes we have to go through, but yeah, I mean, this is top tier Star Trek to me, and I just hope they keep up the good work so I can give some more 9s. Or even a 10, maybe? Ooh.
How are you going to give it a 9? There's nowhere to go.
There is where to go. There is the 10. Remember I talked about the 10 before. They make me cry. They move me emotionally. It's a 10. They haven't done that yet.
And then you also have the back pocket 11. There's always the 11 episode.
Yeah. Spinal Tap rating.
Just write in 11 and just turn it up.
I will also give it a 9 out of 10. I basically enjoyed the whole episode. I kind of warmed up to it. I wasn't sure at first, and then when they did the drop, the photon torpedo from the ship, just like a mine or something, that I started liking it more and more, and all the character stuff. But really, what made it a 9 was the last sequence when they go around the black hole. That really, is top tier, top shelf Star Trek. So it gets a 9 out of 10.
Again, you mentioned that torpedo. It just always bugs me in movies, like bombs with blinking lights. Like, why does a torpedo have to have all those glowing blue lines? Like, can't it just be a black thing that they can't see and it kind of sneaks up on them and blows them up? Like, why has it got to be completely visible and have this futuristic design on it?
So they can have a scene where there's a kid on the ship who points up and goes, "Oh, what's that? Oh."
It just drives you crazy. But these are things you want to conceal. Why are they lit up like a Christmas tree?
That's kind of why I don't really like a lot of the production design in this show, because everything has LED lights on it. It drives me crazy. It looks like a rave. When you're on the bridge, like every panel, every thing that's on a bridge.
Don't you like the little plastic gel buttons? I love them.
No, those are fine. But when you look at it, there's neon lights on every single set piece. Everything on the bridge has a neon light on it. And it's really distracting. If they just took all that stuff away, it would just look so much cleaner, so much better, and so much more realistic. But
I love all the main sets in this show. I love engineering and sick bay and the bridge and the quarters. It's all been great. I really like the retro, the blend of the retro, low budget 60s and the modern sleek design. But,
I miss my comforting carpet. I miss my TNG carpets.
Oh, TNG, they put carpet on everything, up the walls. I think people were like sleeping on carpets too, like where the beds were like upholstered.
Jesus.
The carpeted beds with those cinder block
There's
pillows.
sail on
Carpet?
No, all I know is that it felt like a warm hug. And this feels like some sort of Chrome S&M dungeon.
I thought this episode was a warm hug.
It was a warm hug.
From the Gorn.
Please more.
Mind you, I hear next week is a rom-com with Spock.
I'm gonna prepare my 2 out of 10 rating now.